Hello, everyone. Welcome to It's Sybil. I am Sybil Wilkes, and with me today is our social justice contributor, Coy Malone. Hello, Coy. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing pretty good. Sybil, how are you?
I am doing okay. I had a problem with my car. I have an old car, and I did something today. I went to vote early. We had runoff elections, and so I went to vote, and I pulled into a parking space. And when I pulled out, it was a long drag on my bumper, right?
Oh,
And so I ran a couple other errands, and the last errand I got to, I came out to the car and I'm looking at the front of it and looking down, and like it's not the whole bumper, but it's the lower part of the bumper that's just kind of hanging on there. And
oh gosh.
I'm just trying to figure out what to do. Do I rip it off? Do I try to do I get some tape and kind of rig it? But so
Might be
tell
a time to test out Gorilla Glue.
oh, Gorilla Glue. I do have Gorilla tape, but Gorilla Glue might be a good. Yeah, thank you for that. Okay, I'm gonna go look for the Gorilla Glue. Um, did you get outside to play this weekend?
I did. I got outside a little bit and I'm glad I did. I'm trying to incorporate that a little bit more. I'm so used to, being responsible all the time. And even like on Saturdays, I don't really do anything. Now I capitalize on sleep. That's a great thing, but I would like to
Hmm.
start capitalizing on getting outside.
Okay, okay, but you
So I did
got your
that this week.
sleep in.
I did. I got my sleep in.
And what does
Um,
that look like? Like, how many hours do you feel like you really got enough sleep?
Ooh, that could be 12.
Really?
Yeah. I'll go to bed at
Wow.
8, wake up tomorrow at 8, 9, 10, 11. That's over 12, actually. Yeah.
Wow.
hmm
That is so
But
cool.
it's just one day like that
Yeah.
because I have had so little sleep throughout the week. And
Yeah.
I've always been like that. Even in high school, I would sleep in on a Saturday.
Well, I mean, that's a good thing. I'm jealous because I wish I could sleep in like that because I will wake up like at 3, 4, 5,
Yeah.
3 or 4 or 5, and then several hours later before I fall back asleep, and it's not a real continuous and fulfilling sleep. But
It's
I
just that
just
one day. I don't know
yeah.
if I can or not, but I do it.
Yeah, well, the fact that you can, I celebrate that for you.
Just do it.
Yeah, it's so much easier said than done. Like yesterday was Sunday, and so it's a work day, but I had already
hmm
started preparing to work on Saturday. And I woke up at like 2 or 3 in the morning, and I wasn't able to go back to sleep till about 7. And so I had started a story, and then I fell asleep. And then when I woke up, I was still so sleepy. I was trying to finish my work, and I was like, falling asleep and stuff. My sleep is so very disjointed that I really I'm jealous. That's just it. I'm jealous of your sleeping. That you can sleep 12 hours and just get up and go.
It's just that one day, though. The
I
rest of the
know,
days are choppy. I have the same
but
type of
that
sleep.
one day, that that's what I aspire to.
I'm
I
telling you, just
aspire.
do it. Next time, just lay there.
Well, I do, and then I'm laying there long enough, like you're really wasting your time. You could be doing, A, B, C, D, and so I get up and I do A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, and then when I finally do fall back asleep, it's not for very long, and it's just kind of like, we teased you a little bit with a little nappy nap there, but.
Just my theory. You might be a Virgo rising like me. We should ask Miss Astrology.
Well, I do have more Virgo in me. She has already said that. She has not read
hmm
my chart, but she has said that I do have a Virgo in my Leo chart. So, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, 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 absolutely. So Coy is, I mentioned, is our social justice contributor. She writes social justice articles for our What You Need to Know newsletter, and in cultivating those, I'm afraid that there is a preponderance of stories about Black men that are killed by police. And this week is like a previous week, and a week before that, and a week before that, and a week before that. Another disturbing story about another Black man killed by police, this time in Canton, Ohio. And it has an even sadder part to this story.
Yes. So 53-year-old Frank Tyson was killed by police on April 18th. There's been protests that have gone on in downtown Canton, Ohio, demanding that the officers be held accountable. They want the officers fired and charged for this murder by police. And what makes it so sad is a 24-year prison sentence this man, Mr. Tyson, just served. He was just released weeks ago before this. From other research that I did in other stories, the family says that he was also wrongfully arrested. That's what the family said. So, according to Canton police, they were responding to a single vehicle crash, and this started around 8:15 p.m. The officers found Mr. Tyson's vehicle empty, and they located him nearby after witnesses said that he went to a nearby lodge. So, allegedly, this is according to the police, they struggled with him. He was struggling with the officers, and then he became unresponsive. And then CPR and doses of Narcan were administered before medics arrived. He was taken to a hospital where he was pronounced dead at 9:18 p.m. Now, police body camera footage was later released, and it showed two officers, Bo Schoenige and Camden Birch, who were attempting to arrest Tyson as he was yelling out, "They're trying to kill me." And after being handcuffed and face down, one of the officers had a knee in Mr. Tyson's back for about 30 seconds.
And the familiar refrain,
"I can't breathe." He kept telling him, "I can't breathe." Even after the officer got off of him, he was still face down. Officers continued talking to bystanders, just making conversation with the bystanders. He's still on the ground yelling out that he can't breathe. 5 minutes after he said that for the last time, one of the officers asked if he calmed down. The other officer he asked if he's breathing. The officer checked his pulse, then walked away. Then came back and said he's unresponsive. So then this is when they started CPR. This is 8 minutes after the last words that he spoke. And then they continued over 10 minutes as paramedics arrived at 8:51. And, then he was taken to the hospital where he was shortly pronounced dead not too long after that. So the officers have been placed on administrative leave, pending an investigation. There was a funeral that was held on May 8th where American civil rights activist Reverend Al Sharpton gave the eulogy, and also civil rights attorney Benjamin Crump, who was representing Tyson's family, was also among those who spoke at the funeral. So now what's also questionable about this case is it garnered a lot of attention at first. There were protests that were going on. The family is demanding justice, but now there have been no updates for about a month. So I've been kind of keeping an eye on this story for a few weeks. I've been a little bit hesitant to share it because there were no updates, but I figured there's no better time than the present.
Right. And sadly, as I said, it's that familiar refrain, "I can't breathe." And when they say this, do the policemen now think that they're kidding? That they don't, they can't take them seriously? That they shouldn't take their knee off the neck of a man whose breathing apparatus may be.
It's something that they have learned to ignore and overlook when it comes to us. There's another story that I'm working on in the near future, that talks about how police often have quoted in the reports that the black person that they're arresting, particularly black men, they always quote them to have superhuman strength. And that's a false trope that often leads to fatalities or horrible incidents of injury.
Or why they shoot them in the first place.
Yes.
Right? That's such a damn shame. So once again, people are filing, and like I said, it's this week and then next week and the week after that and the week after that. Those aren't the only stories that you write, obviously, but certainly it's your writing assignments to yourself are not helped by the fact that these are the stories that are making headlines across the country. I do want to bring people's attention to a story that you completed for tomorrow's newsletter, and that has made a lot of headlines after what went on in the United States House of Representatives last Thursday night, in the Oversight Committee. And this is the contretemps between Texas Democratic Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, and Georgia Republican Congresswoman and Trump supporter Marjorie Taylor Greene. So take a look at Coy's story on that. I think that that is going to be one that we're going to be talking about for a while, and until something comes out of this. But and I have my own thoughts on that, Coy. I don't know if you want to share yours.
I just feel like it seems like there are rules that are enforced for some, but ignored for others. And when we start looking at how is this how our representatives operate on a day-to-day basis? Are they more concerned about how someone dresses, eyelashes and what have you, more so than the topic at hand? Then to me, that is very questionable in terms of the leadership that we have elected. And then the persons that are enforcing this and saying, hey, this can be something that's against the rules, but okay, this isn't. We're going to excuse it for this person, but not this person. Then how do we as a whole change who is representing us in Congress? Because it wasn't just Marjorie Taylor Greene that I'm looking at. I'm looking at Representative Comer as well, because how
Yeah.
are you able to maintain order and fairness
You
across the
are the
board?
chairman of that committee.
And these are people that we elect.
Yeah. And so you make a good point, because tomorrow you will go to the voting polls. If you have not already voted, Coy, you have your primary elections in Georgia, and there are several other states that are also having their elections tomorrow. And in Georgia, people have an opportunity to vote yay or nay for Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene in the 14th congressional district. So this is a good time for you to take a look at those who are representing you. And it's highly unlikely that her electorship, her constituents are watching this show right now. Highly unlikely. However, but take a look at the people that are representing you and how you are being represented in Congress. Not doing the work, but calling somebody out because of something you don't like about the way they look.
It would make sense if they did watch the show, because then maybe they would actually have facts to share.
Yeah, that they would have facts to switch to their own devices. So
And I like the word you used to describe their exchange.
They did. It was, but I do appreciate my friend Donna Brazil, who said, "Don't fall for the okie doke. Don't lower yourself to her standards," which is what I believe too. She there are words to describe people like her, and I think we know a lot of what it is. And I'm not sure that quoting a song is what we want to do, but to perhaps ignore her and keep it moving. I like the way that she did bring it to the attention. He's like, "Huh, what? Say what?" But it was pretty fun watching just his reaction and Jamie Raskin, because they're like in a tennis match, going, what's going on? But
know what to think.
I don't like to see people brought down to that level, that in that level where Marjorie Taylor Greene lives and breathes. That's what I will say.
The
It's
ghetto.
It is also Ministry Monday, and our friend Willie Mae McIver makes a distinction between hope and faith. And so check that out in our Ministry Monday segment. That is every Monday, hence the name. And we would love to have you subscribe to the What You Need to Know newsletter. Please go to sybilwilkes.com. Give us your name and your email address, and we'll have it in your email box every Monday through Friday. As I said, Coy is social justice contributor. Cameron Riley is on Tuesday on the show with politics. His little sister, Quinn Townsend Riley, is our LGBTQIA plus contributor. And Aprilette Russell is on with us on Thursdays, and she is our mental health and wellness. And this is Mental Health Awareness Month. And so we are focusing on that and a lot of her work this month. Also, coming up, it's time for the What's Really Going On segment. And I always love having this guy on. And Steve and I have been talking to each other virtually for a few months. And then finally, just a couple of weeks ago, we finally met in person on the Joiner cruise and, and spent just about every day in conversation. He is an incredibly bright man and a successful businessman and a Morehouse College alum. And he was there in attendance at the Morehouse graduation yesterday. I believe your nephew graduated.
Yeah, a couple of my nephews
Oh,
actually.
wow.
So they're my play nephews, but my best friends and fraternity brothers. We were all lucky enough and blessed enough to have a group of young men here. I'm in South Orange, Maplewood, New Jersey, who all graduated. And I've raised those kids, man, since they were little boys. But to see them all cross yesterday was amazing,
That was
absolutely amazing.
amazing. I just got
So
chills from
amazing,
that. That's really
yeah,
cool, Steve.
amazing, amazing.
Congratulations on that.
Oh no, thank you. Well, congratulations to them. They
Yeah.
put in the work.
Yes.
But the beautiful thing about the college, and we'll get into it, is that it is a community. I tell people the biggest mistake I ever made about Morehouse was when I went, I thought it was a 4-year institution, but it's actually become a lifetime community. So the greatest benefits are yet to come for all those young men.
And Coy too is an HBCU graduate of Jackson State, and
Oh, there
so
you go.
don't let her give you the side eye about the
Oh,
house or
I
anything.
would never, not
no,
about
no.
Morehouse.
Listen, listen. She can because let me tell you, Jackson State. Tons of family growing up in Chicago. The
Mhm.
pipeline is thick down at JSU.
Straight down
So listen,
I-57, right?
I tell people all the time, as long as the B stands for Black, we all family. So it's
Okay,
all good.
Yeah.
okay. So tell me, this was a big day for Morehouse. They don't often have presidents of the United States. President Obama did speak there. I believe it was in
Yeah,
2013 uh,
absolutely. Yes,
when he spoke, and now President Biden went at a consequential time in his career, as he is just months away from hopefully uh, continuing a successful campaign for his reelection. And as such, there was a lot of concern because of the timing of this with the Israel Hamas war, Steve, with the people that are protesting against the treatment of Palestinian people. A lot of discussion whether the president should have gone there or not. And
absolutely.
so, did you have a horse in this race? Did you have a discussion where people said, "Well, what do you think, Steve? Did you
Yeah.
have?"
Well, absolutely. So, well, I mean, well, first off, Morehouse is a small community. So, although let me be very clear, I'm speaking for myself and I
Mhm.
wasn't involved in the decision making. The beautiful thing is the school we all taught, right? So the phones were ringing off the hook, not only about his announcement as the commencement speaker, but candidly, and this is a whole separate issue, the conferring of honorary degree.
Mhm.
Because, many colleges throw that around. Morehouse doesn't usually do that. And so that was actually as consequential to the Morehouse community
There was
as
a
the
vote.
commencement address. Oh, absolutely. Well, the vote, so let me be clear with that. The vote for and commencement addresses normally take place a year in advance.
Mhm.
And so Biden was already invited, at least from what I understand, last October,
Right.
they had secured him. The vote was normally supposed to take place then, but due to some administrative changes and some faculty changes, they actually didn't vote. And one of the faculty members brought that up right before, I should say right before, literally, I think it was last week, that, hey, guys, we actually never really voted on this. And
Wow.
normally the vote is a rubber stamp.
Mhm.
But, again, it's been widely publicized. The vote was 50 to 38 for Biden to get the degree. And the only reason I bring that up is because the media coverage, by definition, it's easier to digest.
Right.
Hey, he's a commencement speaker, and obviously the different opinions on that. But I could tell you with the Morehouse community, the conferring of the honorary degree, because that truly means like we take honorary very seriously.
Sure.
He's not a Morehouse man, and so that comes with it all the things that you would think. And we can have a commencement address, and those come and go. The degrees are forever, so we take it very seriously. But it passed, and my dog in the hunt to answer your question specifically, were my nephews and the other 400 young men. You know, to be very candid, that's what I care about. Because the other context that people don't understand is those young men were accepted in the Morehouse virtually. They didn't get a chance to tour the campus.
Yeah.
Okay, their first year was on Zoom.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, again, the education is not just in the classroom. The education is building the community amongst your Black male peers. Those students got shortchanged even for that. And through no
President
fault of their
Biden
own.
brought that up too.
Yes, he did. Absolutely. Absolutely. And through no fault of their own, right? The timing, and obviously with, you know, again, you know, the attacks on October 7th and then the consequential, you know, overreaction by Israel and what's going on in Gaza. And so, again, it's like a pandemic. The students are caught in a vice grip that they can't control, and frankly are being used a lot as instruments in this, which again is fine. Because one of the things that I enjoyed about the school, and just to give it, I think my 35th reunion is next year.
Oh, great.
At the end of the day, we literally, I'm sorry, year after next, we were all talking about how everything moves in a circle. When I showed up on campus in 1987, Spike Lee was doing the last bit of filming for School Days.
School Days. Wow.
And a story that most people don't know about School Days is that half the movie was actually filmed at Clark College, which is now Clark Atlanta University, because Spike, during my freshman year, was thrown off the yard for filming School Days. And you want to know why he was thrown off? Why? If you saw the movie, what was the movie about? The movie was about a group of traditional students,
right? The
elite sort of fraternity and sorority class, and the administration all at odds over the divestment of South Africa. Right. At the end of the day, the biggest library, AUC shares a lot of facilities. The library is shared amongst all the schools in the Atlanta University Center. It's called the Robert Woodruff Library. That's named for the CEO of Coca-Cola during the time of significant investment in South Africa. Wow. So when Lawrence Fishburne on our campus, actually where the graduation takes place, at the end of it, when he rings the bell and says, "Wake up," that was to protest, again, what we thought the wrong of apartheid was when I was a freshman. Now, fast forward literally 40 years later to the date almost, right? You have a situation where the young men at Morehouse, right, are in dispute with some leaders. And I want to be super clear, some leaders in the administration, right? And caught in this vice grip of, hey, do we believe in these ideals? Do we push this no matter what the cost is, even to our own personal gain? Or do we actually take advantage of the personal gain in spite of those issues? There's no clear answer. And by the way, there's no monolith with the community. I actually felt very pleased that the discussion was taking place, because too often people say the college is disconnected from the issues. I actually enjoyed the fact that the college is centered on the issues and that these young men could prove, which is the greatest thing that happened in graduation. Man, we don't have to agree, but as family, you don't agree with your family all the time, but there's a respect and there's a love.
Right.
And, you know, and I respect you enough to disagree with you respectfully. And what I saw from the young men on campus that really warmed my heart is you saw them speak out. Even against Biden.
Including the valedictorian.
Who, by the way, valedictorian from the south side of Chicago.
All right.
You know, so I'll throw that out there. But I was so proud of that young man. Not again for what he said, but how he said it. I was so proud of the young men who stood firm and cheered Biden. I was proud of the young men who turned their back because they stand for something.
Right.
You know, and that's what I'm saying I'm so proud of, is that they stood for something. You know, trust me, people wanted to see us as a community, right, tear each other up and, you know, disrespect Biden. And the whole thing, to me, I'd be honest, seemed like a setup. It's sort of like, okay, you know, at the end of the day, Howard University had Biden last year. Right. Nobody makes a lot of mention of that. Biden has honorary degrees, Morgan State. I mean, we can go down the line.
He can really fill the walls of the White House.
And by the way, we also know, let's just keep it a buck, as my kids would say, everybody who didn't want Biden to speak at Morehouse, do you know how many colleges were trying to still get him, assuming we would cancel?
Yep. They were
they were in their opinion, like, again, and I'm not talking about non-HBCUs.
Right.
I don't want to call out names, but we know the HBCUs that were in there like, okay, if Morehouse waivers show up, we got you.
Right.
So again, I think the young men stood firm, stood fast, and most importantly, and I'll say this very direct, where else are you going to see 413 African American men get a degree at the same time? So while the focus is on one guy who already has almost 20 honorary degrees and is the most powerful man in the world, I want people to look at how powerful those 400 young brothers are, right? And how they did it despite not having the proper funding, despite not having the best resources, despite the world thinking that if anybody's going to cut a fool, it's going to be these gentlemen.
Yeah.
And you saw none of that.
I thought about that. And what I wanted more from the president's speech was to hear more about these young men. But I know that the president had to throw in something about himself in order to kind of build that collegiality between him and his audience, right? And tell them we're not that different. I'm the first one to graduate from college in my family. And that kind of thing. But there's so many great stories in there of these fine young men, and talking about the place where Martin Luther King grew to manhood, and as you mentioned, Spike Lee and the senator from the state of Georgia, and all of these other people and actors and politicians and all of this, just to talk about that history and how there's land you can't even walk on, right?
Absolutely, yeah. And one of the things that got overshadowed even in this was, how did Biden come to Morehouse? You have people like Cedric Richmond, right? Senator Raphael Warnock, right? State Senator Marlon Kimpson, right? The mayor of Birmingham, Alabama. Woodford. Okay, you have Stephen Reed from Montgomery, Alabama.
Yep.
So where people in Montgomery could not, when Martin Luther King helped them get the right to enter into convenience stores and sit at a counter to buy lunch, now we have a brother from Morehouse that's the mayor, right? And people don't talk about the investments that Hyundai made in Montgomery, Alabama. They don't talk about in Birmingham, the space program outside of Houston is headquartered there, because they want us, again, to play down. And I think with Biden, again, I was talking about this, first of all, every alum, I don't know if you saw from graduation, Morehouse is one of the only institutions where the alum sit with the graduates.
Yeah,
that's separate from our families, because it is a community. But we all talked about it. When have you ever seen Biden give a speech that was uplifting or arousing? That's not him. So, but the cool thing about commencement, and I tell people all the time, commencement speaker, if I could show you the program, it's probably online. Commencement speaker is one of about 17 different speaking parts, right? And so again, we let people who are on the outside, who don't know the family business, tell us what's going to happen at the dinner table. That's just absurd. So to me, the valedictorian speech should have been broadcasted worldwide. I saved that. The baccalaureate speech from the Saturday before graduation should have been saved. All of those remarks, all of those young leaders came together. And again, to Biden's defense, his job was to just stand out there and throw the first pitch.
Right.
These young men, you have never gone to the Cubs game or the White Sox game to see the first pitch. Right. It's only because of the controversy, which, by the way, is rightfully so, that we're even talking about him. Because like I said, at Howard last year, he spoke, and that was a great honor. And I'm not throwing my peers under the bus from Howard, but it was no mention the day before and no mention the day after. Right. It's because of the times we live in. And so what I was proud is that there really is no mention now of the speech, because the speech, although it did have a couple of points that we should touch on, but it was actually fairly down the road. And you could tell the Frankenstein approach. You could tell a couple of brothers got in his ear and said, listen, you need some black church references. A couple of his people, I'm just keeping it, but a couple of his people said, listen, you're running for office. You better tell them how much money you saved them or spent on them. And then, he kind of got a little comfortable sometimes and wanted to throw in a few jokes about Kamala being an AKA from Howard.
She's AKA from Howard. It was like,
well, given that I'm an Omega for Morehouse, that went over like a lead balloon, So we were like, we definitely had a few, is this mic on type moments, right? But again, and I'll tell you one thing that's very noticeable. And if you saw the graduation, it's available online. You could see. Notice no one mentioned that the faculty were holding up the flag of the Democratic Republic of Congo behind him.
Yeah.
And so that showed, like, literally, like, and by the way, the president let it happen.
I couldn't really see it from my vantage point. That's a really good point. Yeah.
But I'm saying, though, the president, and again, I'm not here to cape for him, although obviously I think it's a pretty obvious choice relative to his competitor. But at the end of the day, he didn't have any problem with that. What showed me is the people who wanted to cover the mess, as my mother would say. I'm like, okay, let me get this straight. You want to talk about the 3 or 4 people who, first of all, had nothing to do with the graduation, who are 4 blocks away shouting. Right. Okay. But you didn't want to cover the people got mugged right down the street from where they were at. That's a different story. But these people are holding up a country of African descent that's been subjugated to military coups, that is under the poverty line, which all the resources have been drained for decades. They are literally holding up that nation's flag behind the president of the United States.
Holding those people up.
And you are not mentioning that.
Yeah.
That's not because you want to cover injustice or you're really attacking the president. You want to cover these young Black men being disrespectful to the president of the United States. So look at it. Why do we have DEI? So again, very substantive. People ask me all the time. They're like, Steve, why do you care that Biden came? I said, at the end of the day, I don't agree with everything I do, and I still love myself. I said, but at the end of the day, we're talking about someone who took HBCUs from $7 billion in funding to $16 billion. We're talking about a person, whether you like it or not, has a right-hand person, the vice president of the United States, that's a sister, who is a AKA from Howard. Right. So we can talk about supporting HBCUs. Last I said, if you support somebody,
right down the hall next to yours that are men and women from HBCUs.
They have doubled the Pell Grant, right? These are facts. It's not something I'm saying. And by the way, here's the thing that's indisputable. The number one way to go from the bottom quintile of wealth in this country to the upper quintile of wealth is education. The most efficient source of education for Black Americans is a college education. The most efficient producer of college graduates who are Black are HBCUs.
So let me just stop.
So the math is mathing.
The math is mathing. And let me just stop, because Coy, before we get to the end of this, I just want to get your thoughts and observations on what you saw of yesterday. I don't know if you saw the speech itself, but what you saw of the coverage and your thoughts on the president going to Morehouse yesterday.
I didn't actually watch the speech yesterday. I did watch a lot of the traffic here in Atlanta because it was crazy. That was really backed up. But I do understand why he did choose to go to Morehouse. There's been a lot of debate, a lot of coverage in the media as of lately with President Biden and his support from the Black community. I feel like there is this, I don't know if you want to call it a trope, there's just this narrative going on that's saying that his support is slipping. However, when you do look at the polls that are being generated, more often than not, you're going to find more Black people that are still in support of President Biden. And if they had a choice between President Biden, former President Trump, or somebody else, more people are still tending to lean towards President Biden. So I think it was a great political strategy. But also, I feel like people need to actually, including myself, pay attention to what's going on and stop listening to these headlines that are saying President Biden is losing traction. President Biden is losing the Black vote. People aren't really voting for him anymore, because now you're just regurgitating social media rumors in the rumor mill and not actually seeing what's going on.
They're facts, or they're so-called facts.
Yeah, and I can appreciate people like people that are really like kind of connected with my generation, like Plies, who has been posting facts almost on a daily basis, showing what President Biden has done since he has been in office. This is where a lot of people get lost. And this is where they start being able to be swayed by these public opinions and stuff like that, because they don't know any of the facts.
Right.
So this is what I would like for people to do. Like, even if you're not watching the speech, if you missed it like I do, there are other people out within our community, within our culture, icons that we know of that are actually putting out this information on a daily basis. So that's how I like tend to get my information, by reading the facts and comparing and things like that. If you're not a person that watches the speeches that go on, if you're not watching the debates, you need to find your information from a source. But then once you do find it from the source, you need to do your own research too.
Good for you. Good for you. Steve, we are out of time, but can you stick around for
Absolutely.
a few minutes?
Absolutely.
I do want to continue this conversation. So our guest is Steve Pannon. He is a Morehouse man, a proud one, a father of a Morehouse man. And when you have your 35th anniversary, will that be when your
Yeah.
son graduates?
Yeah, so I'm trying to do inside track. I told the guys, if you pick Biden, then I threw my name out at the hat for 26, because I know I actually dead serious.
I love
But
it. You should.
yeah. But Coy, what you said though, spot on. Like I can't say it enough. And if there's any criticism I have of Biden, it's that there are too many people like me in his ear, and he needs more people like you. Because the advice you just gave, I was like, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So let me ask you that. So with the speech yesterday, and we know, as Coy said, and as we know, that the battle is for the young Black man. Do you think that he made, just from your point of view, and maybe your discussions after
Yeah.
the ceremony, just on the plane, wherever, and talking to your brothers, but do you think that he made any headway in talking to and getting the attention of young Black men in yesterday's speech?
It's sad to say so, but I don't think so. But I actually agree 100% with what Coy said. I don't know if the magnitude of the problem is as great as
Right,
people are trying to make it
right.
out to be.
It is
And because I
magnified.
think there are three choices actually. There is support of Biden, right? There's
Mhm.
support of Trump, and then there's let's actually not have another Trump
There's
campaign. Like, and
Yep.
I think the
I think
problem
there's a
is,
fourth. I
go
think there's
go
a
go say.
fourth, and I think that's apathy, and I
Oh,
don't want
absolutely.
apathy to win.
Well, I will say this, because again, Morehouse is a microcosm. I think the apathy again is very real. But I think at the end of the day, that to me is the biggest thing that I think we
Mhm.
have to fight. Because again, the Morehouse guys, we might talk a little bit, but let's just say there's never going to be a situation where Trump goes to speak at that time. Like if we talking about 50-38 Biden, it would have been 88-0
Mhm.
like against Trump. Like let's
Mhm.
just be super clear. But I think to what Coy said about who's speaking it, to the generation, where they're getting their information from, the apathy around, well, does it matter to me? I don't think the young Morehouse men feel that way. But unfortunately, there's a lot more young men who don't get the opportunity to go to Morehouse, who didn't get the opportunity to see that. And so, even though my dog in the fight this weekend was up for my Morehouse brothers, the dog in the fight I have as a Black man are with those brothers who don't get to graduate.
Mhm.
And that's why I actually support what Biden's talking about, because at the end of the day, we can't survive only graduating 400 people from Morehouse, only having a few Jackson states. And I just personally believe if you were to sit Trump down and sit Biden down and ask him a simple question, are you prepared to support the Jackson states, the Morehouses, the FAMs, the Bethune-Cookmans, the Central states? One person is going to need somebody in their ear. Another person may need somebody to tell a more coherent story, but we know where their heart is.
And trust and believe there's nobody in Mr. Trump's ear except to say, "Oh, great prison picture," or
Oh,
great booking photo.
oh,
Um,
absolutely,
you know,
absolutely. I mean, we'll move on,
Shoes
but
and
one
chicken.
fact,
right.
yeah,
Right.
but one fact people need to know, that picture that Trump took with the heads of a few historically Black colleges in office that he likes to Trump around,
Mhm.
it just, again, I'm not telling you opinions, I'm telling you facts. That was a staged photograph
Very much so.
after a Black congresswoman pushed for that HBCU funding bill, which was actually emergency aid
Yep.
post COVID,
Yep.
right? But he takes credit for that stuff. So that's why I go back to, one person is a master campaigner and manipulator and marketer. Another person might be a decent government person, but is not necessarily a great pitchman. And that's the problem.
And he
Yeah.
doesn't just talk the talk, in terms of what you were talking about, Steve, in terms of the $16 billion that have gone for in terms of eliminating of student debt, clearing everyone's, not everyone, but clearing as many people as possible their student debt or reducing the debt that they owe. Over $900 million strengthening HBCUs as institutions and $11.5 billion between 21 and 23 through the federal grants, awards, and debt relief of HBCUs, and over $4 billion for the students through the federal financial aid and educational benefits for veterans as well.
Yeah.
Don't forget
Yeah.
about that.
No. And to Coy's point, he needs more, and it's my personal opinion, more relationships with people like Coy so they can help him frame those facts
Right.
because we know those facts. I'm not sure if, again, we were to go to West End Mall, we were to hop down, in Decatur and literally ask the brothers, hey, who's doing what for you? I'm not
Any
sure they'd be able to
barbershop,
regurgitate
any
that.
barbershop we could go into.
Yeah.
Absolutely,
A lot of people don't
absolutely.
know. They don't
They
know.
don't
Those are
know
the
that. They don't
conversations
know
that I
that.
have a lot.
They
Is
don't know
they're
that.
blaming things that are happening now on President Biden, but not realizing that a lot of these things were instituted during Trump's presidency. One of the
Yeah,
recents that happened when President Biden proposed the new tax cut that is actually holding people that are, wealthy, super wealthy, holding
right.
them more accountable by charging them the taxes that are actually correct. And so
Yeah.
you have people that are amongst my peers saying, "Oh, that's why I ain't vote for him. He's trying to give us more taxes." I'm like, "Do you make six figures? Are you a millionaire? Like, you don't even know what's going on, do
Yeah,
you?"
yeah. Well, you hit the nail on the head, and we live in a world where, again, the sound bites and the fiction, lies travel much faster than truth,
Around the world,
right?
very true.
The
Yep.
the black net worth in the United States of America is actually hovering between $0 and $4,000. That's the net worth. The average black household has an income of under $40,000. So, to your point, Coy, none of these tax issues affect us on the negative side. They only help us. Think about the $95 billion aid package to Ukraine and Israel has been
Right.
held up for almost a year. Think about, and by the way, who that is going to. Think
Who's
about
funding
how
it?
difficult it is to get $16.5 billion that's directed for Black people through Congress.
With
So again,
people with people who are on the oversight committee that are muddling in mindlessness.
it doesn't take a rocket scientist to say that if Ron DeSantis and most of the governors in the Southeast United States, which, by the way, 55% of the Black population lives in the southeastern part of the United States, 80% of the Black population lives in a state governed by a red governor.
Yep.
Okay, those governors have gotten together and said, we do not want state educational funding for diversity or critical race theory. So if the state of Georgia, state of Florida, state of Tennessee has said it's illegal for the University of Florida to have scholarships directed at Black people, do we really think Florida A&M is going to exist in a few years underneath Trump where they
Look
can
at
do what they want to?
look at what's
The
going on
Tennessee
in
State,
Tennessee. They've done that in
absolutely.
Tennessee, and our friend, who's the former president of Tennessee State, just left, and the hell that she went through dealing with the members of the state legislature who are doing away with DEI, who wanted to take everything with a fine tooth comb as to how the money was going, when the money was being mishandled by the politicians, not by the school that was doing the best by their students with the money that they received.
So I tell people
Mind
this
you,
all the time.
there's
Go ahead.
stuff going on in Florida as well. A story that I did recently
Yeah.
with some of the organizations at different HBCUs and other campuses that literally had to change their name so they can still continue getting funding after this ruling went through.
Yeah. Well, you're so right. I mean, again, I think we got to connect the dots. There are a lot of ways to make money, but there are few proven ways out of poverty. Education is one of them. Right now, there are people saying that we do not deserve the help in education that we need, and they're trying to cut that off. So how are we going to advance as a people if we're uneducated, if we're underrepresented, and if we don't have enough money to survive?
Well, according to
That's
them,
just
we
the
just have to
bottom
work
line.
harder and stop complaining.
Well, again, because guess what? Because the narrative they're selling isn't to tell us that. The
That's
narrative
right.
they're selling is the insecurity of their peers,
Right.
because their peers are worried. Wait a minute, if Coy gets something, what do I get? If Sybil
Where's
gets
mine?
something, absolutely. And I tell people this all the time. When the Olympics are going to happen this summer, what track race under 400 meters isn't going to have a staggered start?
Okay.
Right? You've never
Okay.
seen a situation where they all line up next to each other. Why? Because the distances are unequal.
That's right.
But we don't want to have a staggered start in America, because that actually knows there's no way for us to win. They've been winning because guess what? They got the inside lane.
That level
And
playing
their
field
worry
does
is,
not exist.
and by the way, I tell people all the time, their worry is if we got in that position, we would do the same as them. And the truth of the matter is, and I'll end it on this note with Morehouse, African Americans are the most peaceful, the most loving, the most accepting group of people on earth. Because if you think about the way we responded to Biden, even though there's collective disagreement, versus the way some of these Ivy League institutions that they like to hold up as being the bastions of freedom and civility. Come on, it's income. But again, no one wants to report that.
No. They want the flash, they want the anger, and they want the disregard and disrespect, because
Yeah,
that
that's
makes
it.
news.
Well, that would be a great story. He comes down to Morehouse. See, I told you, he
You go
doesn't have
down and you
control over them.
look what the black folks are doing to him, and it's like, and that's all Donald Trump would need to say, oh, come over to my side. You'll never get that from us. And we've shown how to act and how to respond under a great deal of pressure. Uh,
No,
but
absolutely.
but to show how these young men and their families have stood up and withstood pressure. They are the diamonds because they have withstood the pressure that's been put on
Yeah.
them.
Well said.
Absolutely. Thank you, Steve. Appreciate you as always.
I appreciate you both.
I miss our
Thank you.
roundtable
Oh,
conversations. We got to
absolutely.
continue
We've got
that.
to go on another cruise. Tell Yolanda to make it happen.
Okay.
Yeah,
Tell
Steve
absolutely.
Hammond,
Yolanda,
I'll
invite
see
me
you
to the
guys.
next one.
Hey,
join
Coy,
us.
come
Okay.
on.
Okay. Come
All
on and
right.
join us.
Bye-bye.
See you soon. Wow, that was great. I was so glad that he was going and was able to join us to talk about that, because there's nothing like getting that firsthand view and report on what happened in that place. And I think you're right. We tried to I've direct messaged him and all of that with Plaz, but I think that somebody like that just needs to keep doing what they're doing on TikTok in order to get the message out. Just like what you're doing with Black Voters Matter, Coy. You are getting out, and you're doing it in not just a straightforward, this is what you need to know, but you are doing it in a very humorous way, but also getting people to think about what they're doing. And so if you've missed any of Coy's productions that she's done, she puts them out on Thursday in conjunction with our partnership with Black Voters Matter, and also indicating the necessity for Black and Brown people to work together to get the vote and to get people out to vote, and to know that Election Day is tomorrow in Georgia as well. I want to say Kentucky maybe is another state. People will correct me, but I know that it is election day. I participated in a runoff election today, but check out the dates for these elections. And Marjorie Taylor Greene is up for reelection.
Sadly.
Well, it is what it is. But if you are someone who doesn't like her, and there's somebody else that fits that for you, then go for it. Absolutely. Absolutely. Did you know that Red Lobster has filed for bankruptcy? Are you sad?
Yes.
Are you sad?
Oh,
Because you
I
don't
don't
do
know
you eat
because
any of that stuff?
I do. I eat, the crab legs, but I'll tell you one thing: those cheddar biscuits are about to fly off the shelves. That might save them. That might single-handedly save the entire
Could the
chain.
cheddar biscuits come to the rescue of
I
Red
think
Lobster?
so.
They filed in Florida. They've been headquartered in Orlando, founded in 1968, and the restaurants will remain open and operating during the Chapter 11 process. and they have been working with vendors to ensure restaurant operations are unaffected. Last week, they listed 87 stores as temporarily closed across 27 states, some of them having their kitchen equipment up for auction. It's hard to make the cheddar biscuits without the proper equipment. But they hope to come back, and I wish them luck. And don't let Ahmed Gordon in if you are trying to make some money at Red Lobster, because he has figured out the secret for the endless shrimp dishes. So,
Has he?
yes, yep. Last thing I do want to remind you guys: have you checked on your folks in Houston? They are still suffering the effects of many people without power. The heat has skyrocketed, and heat comes humidity, and as a result of that, and kids are back in school, and a lot of those places don't have air conditioning yet without power. So um, it's a really bad situation. So help your folks out in Houston and pray for them, and let's do what we can to help them get moving again. Let's move to entertainment. Lenny Kravitz has announced a string of Las Vegas shows in the run up to his new album, as well as his 60th birthday. That don't make no sense. That man does 60.
Mhm.
If that's 60, I want all of that. He is readying the upcoming release of his 12th studio album, Blue Electric Light, prepping for his 60th birthday on May 26th, and announcing an extended run of shows in Vegas this fall. His first extended engagement in Las Vegas, and that is Dolby Live at Park MGM, October 18th, 19th, 23rd, 25th, and 26th. That's that's a mini concert extended. That's not, people live there for years, and have their extended dates. But good for you. Go get your tickets, ladies, and go and celebrate the 60th birthday of Lenny Kravitz. Good Lord. That's entertainment. Let's move to the jewel, Yogi's jewel for the day. Positive energy means maintaining an optimistic outlook even in challenging situations. Positive energy means maintaining an optimistic outlook even in challenging situations.
It helps.
Yeah, it does. It really does. And Yolanda is a great example of that. And so are you, Coy. So
Thank you.
thank you so much for all that you do. Thanks everybody for tuning in today. Thanks to our friend Steve Pammon, and we'll see you all again soon. Go out and play, Coy.
I will. Maybe
I
not
love
tonight.
that.
It's a school night.